everybody, and welcome to a Thanksgiving edition of the AVC Fantasy Focus. My name is AVC, and I'm joined by Max Sapone and Teddy Ryder. Say hello, guys.
What's up, guys?
What's up?
Now, get back to the real focus of Thanksgiving. Sure, everybody thinks of turkey, seeing their family for the first time in a long time, getting all together for the holidays. But you know what it's really about? It's about seeing 3 football games in one day. That's what it's really about. That's what this is all really about. So, with 3 football games covered, let's get to it. First up, kick off Thanksgiving with the Lions versus the Vikings. The Thanksgiving tradition Lions. So, as they prepare to face the Vikings this week, we're going to give you a few starts and sits from each of these teams to help you with your fantasy conundrums. All right. So, for my start, I got Theo Riddick going up against the Viking defense. A lot of pressure is going to be put on Matthew Stafford this week from this defense, and with most of his receivers probably not going to be available, I think Theo Riddick is a considerable good dump-off option for him, and he's going to have to hit him a lot this week, so I'm guessing Riddick will have to at least do something.
All right, so for starting for the Lions, I'm going to go with Anquan Boldin. Last game they had Golden Tate had a huge game with that game-winning touchdown, but I think Xavier Rhodes is going to be locking him down for most of the game. And as Andrew said, Matt Stafford is going to have a lot of pressure on him. And when he's not going to be able to throw the check-down pass to Theo Riddick, I think he's going to be looking for Anquan Boldin a lot.
All right, my start of the week for the Lions is Theo Riddick. He averages at the minimum 12 touches per game. He is a very dangerous running back. He can go in the slot. He can be a receiver. He can run the ball. And I believe he's going to have a big game this week against the Minnesota.
Let's go to the downside of the Lions offense this week. I'm going to go with Golden Tate. As Max said, he surprised a lot of people in the first matchup with the Vikings with a large amount of points accumulated mostly to a long overtime winning touchdown that he really shouldn't have even had. Blair Walsh. Anyway, I don't see him doing that again. I see the Vikings secondary kind of locking him down, as Max said. So I wouldn't put too much faith in Golden Tate this week. I mean, if he's your only option, okay, but he's not the savior of your team.
All right, for sit, going to go with Matt Stafford. Honestly, I think he's going to have a really hard time, especially with Vikings pass rush and Golden Tate probably going to be not locked down, but he's going to have his hands full with Xavier Rhodes. I just don't like the way he played last week against the Jaguars, who he threw for not even 200 yards and 1 touchdown. I just don't think he's going to have a good game.
My sit for the Lions is Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones hasn't had a good game since week 3 against the Packers, and he's gotten worse every week if you look at his stats and fantasy-wise, so I would not play him this week.
All right, we're going to move to the Vikings now. I'm going to be starting Adam Thielen this week. He is a number 2 wide receiver on the Minnesota Vikings. He's the big white guy who completely dismantled Josh Norman when they played the Redskins. Now, that's a pretty good accomplishment in and of itself, but he's a reliable target. He's been actually more consistent than Stephon Diggs has when he's starting. And with a Lions defense that's going to be more concerned with stopping Diggs and Rudolph, look for Adam Thielen to get some good open looks.
All right, for start, I am going to go with Stephon Diggs, who is their number 1 receiver. I just think even though Slater's going to be on him for most of the night, I think he'll probably find a way to shake free, maybe get a touchdown, but I expect over 100 yards from him.
My start for the Minnesota Vikings is Kyle Rudolph. The Lions have really struggled against tight ends this year, and Kyle Rudolph is like top 5 tight ends in the league, and they really have no one that can really cover him on the Lions team. So I expect at least a touchdown, maybe 60 yards from Kyle Rudolph this week.
All right, going to the negatives now for the Vikings. I'm going to be sitting Sam Bradford. All right, let's just face it. He's not that good of a quarterback. He's really not. He gets any sort of pressure, he tanks. He's not. That was clearly demonstrated in his game versus the Redskins. He's just not a good quarterback. When he gets pressured, he makes poor decisions. He can't control the clock. I would not start him this week, and especially with a Lions defense that has a tenacious pass rush.
All right, I'm going to go with sit Matt Asiata. honestly, I would try and stay out of the entire Minnesota backfield this week. Especially with the loss of AP, their backfield hasn't really been doing anything this year, and the Lions' run defense is not terrible. I just think that it's going to be a lot of Sam Bradford airing it out. I don't think Matt Asiata is going to get any points.
Yeah, I agree with Max. Don't use anyone in the Minnesota Vikings backfield. Jerick McKinnon, he averages less than 3 yards per carry. That's pretty bad, if you ask me. That's 3 points in fantasy right there. It's so bad. So if you start him, I feel for you.
That's my line. Anyway. All right, so that's the Lions-Viking game. We're going to move to the 4:30 game now. We're going to go with the Redskins versus the Cowboys. For the Redskins, I'm going to be starting once again this week Jamison Crowder. Basically for the same reason I said last week. He's one of the more reliable targets on the Redskins. He's very fast. He gets open. And deep bomb receivers are, if they're consistent, great for fantasy. And against a Cowboys secondary that has been very shaky this year, go Crowder.
All right, I want to do this last week. All right. I was going to go with Deshaun Jackson, but I'm actually going to change that. I'm going to go Pierre Garçon. I just think more versatile. Deshaun Jackson, he's still milking that shoulder injury. I just think Pierre Garçon, who did have a deep touchdown last week, I think he's going to have a good game.
Well, my start for the Redskins is Kirk Cousins. He had his best game of the season last Sunday night against the Packers. He's third in the league in passing yards and is having a pretty good year. So if you have a reason not to start him, please leave a comment down below.
That'd be an interesting comment. All right, we're going to go to the sits now. For the Redskins, this is more so to clear up an issue from last week. Don't start Chris Thompson, for the love of God. He's not the starter. He barely gets third down looks. He barely gets the ball. Stay away from him.
Well said. For the Redskins, I know that everyone's going crazy for Rob Kelly right now, especially against the huge game he had against Green Bay last week. But really, after that game, I think Cowboys, I don't think the Redskins offense is going to be on the field that much, considering the amount of time that Dak Prescott and Cowboys eat up. And I don't think that he's going to have as good of a game. I give him maybe a touchdown, but I really think that the Cowboys game plan for him, and they're going to be ready for him. I think Sean Lee, they're just going to lock him down.
My sit is also Rob Kelly. Rob Kelly, most of his yards last week came from a 60-yard touchdown when they were trying to milk the clock. Dallas's defense is third best against the rush, so I don't see Rob Kelly getting much of anything against him.
All right, we're going to go to the Cowboys now. My start this week is, now this may not sound surprising, but nobody really starts him in many leagues. It's going to be quarterback Dak Prescott. And when you think of the Cowboys this year, you think more of Ezekiel Elliott than you think of Dak. But he's had a few games where he's really shown what he can do. And with the Redskins being a decent run defense, mostly focusing probably on trying to stop Zeke, look for Dak to really exploit their bad secondary, like Aaron Rodgers did on Sunday.
All right, my start for the Cowboys is Cole Beasley, who overall through the course of the season has been Dak Prescott's favorite target. And other than Josh Norman, the Redskins don't really have that good of a pass defense, so I think he's going to be targeting Cole Beasley a lot.
My start is also Cole Beasley. I agree with everything Max just said. Cole Beasley has been the most reliable target for Dak Prescott since Des Bryant was out for a little while with an injury, and I think Cole Beasley is going to have a big game because they have no one really to cover him.
Not to mention with how sketchy Dez has been with his
My next point.
stats. Yes, I'm sorry. But sticking with that, we're going to go to the negatives now. I'm going to be sitting Jason Witten this week. Now, granted, he's probably one of the best Cowboys to ever grace the field, but for whatever reason, he and Dak just don't seem to really have the chemistry. Yeah, he gets a lot of receptions, but if you notice, they're really just like 3-yard checkdowns. He doesn't really make anything out of them. He's not getting red zone looks either. So he's not really valuable in terms of fantasy.
All right, for sit, for the Cowboys, I'm going to say sit Des Bryant. And I know he's coming off a huge game. But if you look at his numbers this year, he's been very streaky. It's usually one good game, a couple of bad games, maybe 2 good games. But also, they're probably going to line up Josh Norman on him as their only real good defensive back. Maybe he gets a touchdown, but I just don't think he's going to do that good. I say Cole Beasley has a much better game than him.
I agree with Andrew. Jason Witten not going to have that big of a game. Dak Prescott and him aren't really don't have the chemistry like Tony Romo and Jason Witten had. So I don't believe Jason Witten's going to have that big of a game against the Redskins.
All right, we're going to move to the last game of the night now. Pittsburgh versus Indianapolis. We'll start with Pittsburgh. I'm going to be starting Jesse James. Outside of Antonio Brown, Jesse James has probably been the most efficient receiver, consistently wise. He's an underrated tight end who is available in most leagues and gets a lot of red zone looks. And against a horrific Indianapolis pass defense, I'd expect Ben to hit a few shots to him.
All right, my start for the Pittsburgh Steelers is big Ben Roethlisberger. You know, they are coming off a win against Cleveland, and I know everyone's saying, oh, he didn't throw a touchdown, oh, he only got 160 yards. But if you look at the game plan, they were giving it to Le'Veon Bell all day. They clearly didn't want him to throw the ball, risking an injury. I think they're going to be throwing the ball a lot more. They definitely need this win against horrible Colts pass defense. He should have 2 or 3 touchdowns.
My start for the Indianapolis Colts is good. Not the Indianapolis Colts. The Steelers is Darius Hayward-Bay and Marcus Wheaton. These 2 guys, they've been not terrible for the Pittsburgh team, and I believe Hayward-Bay with his speed is going to be able to burn this pretty bad Indianapolis Colts pass defense. And Marcus Wheaton, he's going to be a very reliable target this week as well. So I expect them to have a very good week.
All right. This is going to shock everybody. I'm going to get a ton of backlash for this, but I'm going to go with the opposite of what Max said. I'm going to sit Ben Roethlisberger. Now, the reason I'm doing this is, don't look at me like that, is that
It's stupid.
you know what? I'm entitled to my opinion. This is a free country. I'm entitled to my opinion. Let me say my opinion.
You're just stupid.
All right.
Can I just say my opinion, please? All right. So, I'm predicting a very similar game plan from Pittsburgh to what they did against Cleveland. Indianapolis is by far the worst defense in football. It's just they are. They're pretty much the Saints are better than these guys. The Browns' defense is better than these guys. Indianapolis, I just see the ball going more to Bell like it did last week than they're going to be having Roethlisberger sling it, especially if Andrew Luck doesn't end up playing.
I want to add something. I see where you're coming from, but the reason I say Ben is because last week they took a win against the Browns, and the Ravens lost to the Cowboys. Now, that means that the Steelers are only 1 game back as division leaders, so they're not going to take any chances. They need to win this game against the Colts. It should be an easy win. I just think Ben's going to air it out.
Okay, I definitely agree with that, but I don't know. They throughout the season with the inconsistency, Ben hasn't been that consistent this year, and neither has Antonio Brown. The consistent offensive threat here has been Le'Veon Bell, and I just expect him doing most of the work. All right, let's move on.
Cool.
Indianapolis now. I'm going to go Frank Gore. And this should be pretty obvious. He's by far the most consistent running back in football right now. He averages pretty much 80 to 100 yards and at least a touchdown in pretty much every game. And once again, especially if Andrew Luck is not going to play, it's just going to be a lot of Frank Gore. And Steelers' defense really isn't that good. So I'm seeing Frank Gore having a Frank Gore game.
All right, my start is T.Y. Hilton, and I know receiver Andrew Luck might not play. But if he doesn't play, well, first of all, Steelers' secondary is awful, one of the worst in the league. But if he doesn't play, the only time they're going to be passing the ball they're going to be looking for T.Y. Hilton, their best receiver. So even if Andrew Luck doesn't play, I would say most of the receptions are going to T.Y. Hilton anyway. And I really don't think there's any defensive back on the Steelers that can cover T.Y. Maybe Artie Burns, who's a rookie, who I don't even think he can cover.
Got burned by Des Bryant a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
For Indianapolis, I would play the backfield. I would play Frank Gore and Robert Turbin. I feel like against this very bad Pittsburgh defense without Stephon Tuitt, their best defensive lineman, they're both gonna have a
Correction, we messed that up last week.
I'm sorry, everybody. It's Cameron
Sorry,
Hayward.
everybody. Max messed that up last week. Sorry.
So Cameron Hayward, still like one of their big defensive linemen. I feel like they're just gonna ground and pound against the Pittsburgh defense.
Well said. All right, we're gonna head to the sits now. For me, Dante Moncrief. He had a ton of hype coming into the season. It has not been rewarded with anything. He's been absolute garbage. If you still have him on your team, get rid of him. Don't play him this week, especially without Luck. Tolson's not going to put his faith in a guy like Dante Moncrief.
All right, I'm going with a sit. This one should be pretty obvious, but I'm going to sit Andrew Luck. Don't risk trying to play him. Don't make a game-time decision. Oh, maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't. He probably won't play, even if he does. He's not even going to throw it that much. Honestly, the Colts wide receivers have a better chance with Scott Tolson this week. Andrew Luck's, even if he plays, he's going to do awful.
I agree with both of them. I would not play Andrew Luck, and I wouldn't honestly play any of the receivers for Indianapolis. If Andrew Luck plays, like I said, they're going to ground and pound all day. So that's why I said you should play the running backs. I just don't see Andrew Luck getting it done really in the passing game this week.
All right, we're going to move now to our game predictions and how we think these games are going to turn out. So we're going to go back to the top now. We're going to go Lions-Vikings. All right. We're having a whiteboard shortage this week, so we're not going to be doing that. So we're just going to start off. We're each going to basically just pick who we think we're going to win. All right, so I'll start off. I'm going with the Lions. The Lions, it's Thanksgiving. That's basically what I'm going with. They have great Thanksgiving play. They won their last 3 straight games on Thanksgiving. And with how hot Matthew Stafford and this offense has been, and with how bad the Vikings offense has been, I'm seeing that Stafford will probably do it again he did against Jacksonville last week. And he doesn't have to do a lot. He just has to do enough to win the game.
If I could choose, in a perfect world, both these teams would lose, but unfortunately that's not how the game works.
Packers fans.
So I'm going to have to go with the Vikings, and I know, oh my God, Lions, Matt Stafford, 3-0 the past 3 years on Thanksgiving. But personally, my assessment of those past 3 Thanksgiving games, Calvin Johnson won all 3 of those games for them.
That's true.
And Calvin Johnson isn't here this year. And I do not like how Matt Stafford played last week, and I just think that the Vikings are going to outplay them. They're going to get beat.
I chose the Vikings to win as well. Even though Matt Stafford's on a really hot streak, I think the Vikings defense is just going to shut him down. I don't think he's going to have that big of a week. Not really that much of a rushing game. And I believe Xavier Rhodes is going to shut down Golden Tate. And like I said, Marvin Jones just hasn't been good this year, really, besides that Week 3 matchup against the Packers.
That game was fixed.
Well, let's just say
I think the Vikings are the better team in this game.
All right, I'm going to, again, choose to disagree with you guys on this. This defense of the Vikings, as good as it is great. If Sam Bradford can't put points on the board, he's not going to win the game, which he has failed to do a lot of that this year.
The thing, I think that, all right, look at last game. Last week against the Jaguars, the Lions punted a lot. I think they went 3 straight drives with a 3-and-out. I think that they're going to fail to have a lot of possession And even though Sam Bradford has had a hard time getting in the end zone, I think the fact that he's going to have so much time with the ball, they're bound to get in the end zone 2, maybe 3 times.
You may have time with the ball as in terms of time and possession in the game, but with that, the offensive line is just abysmal. You could put a freaking wall of bricks in front of them. Without cement, they do better than these guys.
Well, the Vikings defense is going to give Sam Bradford a good starting field position. They're
He
not going
gets-
to be pinned down in their own 10 every time.
If he's getting sacked every single time, it doesn't matter. He's going to drop back like 15 yards pretty much every drive. You can't run the ball. You can barely pass.
Let's just move on.
Let's
to the next
move
game.
on to the next one here. All right.
Redskins Cowboys.
Redskins Cowboys.
Yes.
Okay, it's worth talking about. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's not take fix people and let's just debate the game.
Okay.
So, what you're going to get from the Cowboys is obvious. You're going to get a lot of time of possession from Zeke and Dak. What are you doing? You're getting a lot of time of possession for the Cowboys. Zeke's probably going to have a good game. Dak's probably going to have a good game. I'm predicting more of an offensive shootout type thing. Though, don't count out Kirk Cousins and the Redskins. He has a very wide arsenal of weapons in terms of receivers. Jordan Reed, Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garçon, Jamison Crowder. All those guys have been pretty good this year, especially when Deshaun Jackson was healthy. And I think they can definitely give the Cowboys a run for the money. I don't know if they'll win, but I think they're going to be in it the whole game.
I think the key the Redskins need to do, if they have a chance at winning, pass all night. Really,
Yeah.
Cowboys have one of the best run defenses in the league. Kirk Cousins is playing very well this year, and honestly, they're not going to have that much time with the ball. If you look at all the Cowboys games, they eat up so much time with the ball. So the Redskins are just going to have to air it out downfield all night. It's just why I said sit Rob Kelly, and players like Jamison Crowder, as Andrew said, Pierre Garçon, they're going to have good games because they just need to air it out.
I'm agreeing with that completely in the fact that since the Redskins probably aren't going to have a lot of time with the ball, they need to make every second they have with the ball count. So that's talking about what they did last week, a very vertical passing attack. What I'm concerned with is that I don't even remember the name of the Redskins coach. All I know is he's a complete idiot. But I've been feeling after the big game from Rob Kelly last week that he's going to put too much into him. He's going to try to run the ball too much. And he's going to waste possessions trying to get Rob Kelly to do what he did last week.
All right. Well, the only chance the Redskins have is they pretty much need to score almost every drive, and they need to hold Zeke. I know
Is that even possible?
it's not going to happen, but they need to try.
You need to try.
They need to try.
I mean, well, it's not entirely impossible. If you can actually shut down their passing attack, Zeke can't run the ball every single play. Then they can just stack the box.
They're going to need a big game from Josh Norman and their secondary. And their offense. Kirk Cousins coming off the best game of his season. He's going to have a huge game this week. He's going to have a huge game with Jamison Crowder, Pierre Garçon, Deshaun Jackson. They're going to all have to have a big game if they want to stay in the game.
All right, we'll move on now to Pittsburgh and Indianapolis. I'm just going to come out and say this. This entire game depends on whether Andrew Luck plays or not. If Andrew Luck plays, the Colts have a chance. If not, they're going to lose. It's simple as that.
There's really nothing else to it. I mean, Scott Tolzien, who's never been a starter on any team.
To be fair, he was on the Packers, but
He was on the Packers, but there's no way. Andrew Luck can barely throw the ball with his horrible offensive line, and Andrew Luck, even though he's having a bad year, he's a good quarterback. Scott Tolzien, with the amount of pressure he's going to feel from James Harrison, Stephon Tuitt, he's not going to be able to get the ball off, and then he's just going to try and give to Frank Gore, and yes, he'll get probably 100 yards, a touchdown, maybe 2. He can't win the whole game for them.
I agree.
I don't think Indianapolis honestly has a chance really. If they can't stop the Pittsburgh offense, it's over. No matter if they have Andrew Luck, I don't think they can stop the offense, and I don't think the offense of the Colts is good enough to win them the game.
So, the Colts are definitely one of those teams let's be honest, no one ever expects the Colts to really come up big. In any big game they've ever been in, no one expected them to come up top. Whether they're facing the Patriots, whether they're facing the Steelers, no one gave them a chance versus the Titans last week. No, we didn't. They shocked us all. They're 50-year-old retirement home guys in their wheelchairs on defense stepped up and played well in the game. So, I mean, it's the NFL. Anything can happen. But as far as I see it from here, my guess is a Pittsburgh victory. But, hey, Colts fans, don't lose faith. You just need a little bit of luck on your side.
Andrew Luck. Pun.
See, that's what I was going with there. See?
Pun.
You guys like that pun? All right. So that will probably wrap up this edition of the ABC Fantasy Focus. Thank you guys very much for joining me. From ABC Studios. Are you walking out again? Oh my God! For God's sake. Go. For God's sake. He's showing off his freaking Jordy Nelson jersey. The Packers aren't the greatest team in the world. They're not going to make the playoffs.
We're nice.
Oh.